Goosmann, we work alongside business owners, leaders, and innovators who are building something meaningful and want to protect it, grow it, and lead it with clarity. This series is all about bringing you real-world strategies, timely insight, and perspectives from professionals who are in it every day. You are now tuned in to Law Talk Live. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Law Talk Live. I'm your host, Jeana Goosmann with the Goosmann Law Firm, and I am so excited to have with me special guest, Dr. Travis Sholin. Welcome, Travis.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jeana. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I thought we would kind of just get started, Travis, with introducing you to the audience and who you are, and we can talk a little bit about how we even know each other. So, Travis, what do you do for a living?
I work in a multifamily office, so we do a lot of family office work that includes anything from taxes and tax strategy for higher net worth business owners and families, all the way down to insurance and estate planning. And you name it, we pretty much have to do it.
That's awesome. And what's the name of your business, Travis?
Keystone Financial Services, based in Omaha, Nebraska.
Fantastic. And I've been calling you Dr. Sholin. Tell everybody how you are a doctor. What do you have your PhD in?
Yeah, I'm a doctor of finance, Dr. Money. So most of my research and my PhD was in the family office space. So a lot of high net worth, intergenerational family, cross-cultural family, family dynamics, family governance, all that fun stuff.
Fantastic. And you and I know each other from a group that we're both a part of called EO, or the Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yep. Love EO. Shout out to all of our EO people.
Absolutely. It's a great group full of entrepreneurs that own companies and a lot of like-minded individuals in that group. And it's been great to get to know you through that. And I know we were actually on the plane back from an EO retreat, and we were talking about some of these different tools and strategies, and have talked a lot more about them since, and decided, hey, we should share this knowledge. And that's how this LinkedIn Live came together.
Yep, absolutely. So happy to educate. That's what we do all day, every day.
Definitely. And you've got some great tips and ideas and strategies for people that, like you said, come right out of the code and whatnot, but not a lot of people are talking about them. And I thought it would be great if we could share those strategies with people so that hopefully they can save more money. I haven't met anybody that wants to pay more in taxes yet. Have you?
No, not yet. So yeah, we deal with all sorts of different types of tax strategies, just working with higher net worth clientele, a lot of business owners. We get larger exits or, stock RSUs where they have to have large income years. So I spent the first part of my career fighting and battling accountants because there was very little tax strategy actually happening for our clients. And so through a lot of years of frustration and self-teaching of tax strategy and how it works, and we started to kind of do it for ourselves first and practice it in our own family, in our own office, and then started doing it for clients. They loved it. And then we started to just hire our own in-house accountants so that we didn't have to deal with the issue anymore. So through that process, we've learned a lot about the IRS tax code. We worked with lots of tax attorneys, CPAs, et cetera, and had our own that we formulated lots of different types of tax strategies for high income earners. And your and I's discussion, we specifically spoke a lot about real estate professional status, which is something that most people don't know about.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that here in a minute, but I do want to acknowledge that we are doing this live and on LinkedIn. So if you are watching us live, if you could just comment in the comment section of LinkedIn and let us know you're here and maybe where you're from, we would love to be able to interact with you while we do this talk here today. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for Q&A as well. So any chat you have, we are able to see that and interact with you in that way. Travis, when you talk about, you're working with family offices and helping different people, if you have a high net worth individual, could they reach out to you and get more specific advice, since we're going to be talking more in generalities today?
Yeah, of course. And that's kind of how we operate. And we're educators. We are happy to have conversations with anybody and everybody. because they don't teach this stuff. And they don't teach this stuff even in colleges and advanced degrees. You got to dig pretty deep to find a lot of this. And, it's stuff that people have been using for, since the tax code has been around in the United States. It's all perfectly legal, but we just don't know how to use it to our advantage in many cases.
You bet. And you talk a lot about the educational component. And I think you're right. People don't know what they don't know. And they don't even know what to ask. They just know they have a big tax bill and they'd like it to be smaller. And we'll kind of go through some of those different strategies. But before we jump into that, can you explain what is a family office?
Yeah, so a lot of times when people have significant liquidity events, they have a lot more capital than they're comfortable just managing on their own, or even just giving to an investment professional outright. So a lot of times they want more services under one roof. Sometimes a single family office, they'll hire their own employees, their own accountants and investment people and management teams and bill pay and all that sort of stuff. Or they'll plug into a firm like ours where it's a multifamily office where you have multiple families that are using those services. A lot of accounting services, investment services. We'll get a lot more into the commercial real estate side of things and alternative investments. So pretty much people that want things under one roof, whether it's their own or plugging into another firm's.
Got it. So you get to a point where you've got a lot of money and it becomes a job to manage your money, essentially.
Yeah. And people oftentimes come to realize that the family office world is extremely labor intensive. It's a lot of work. So more and more we find that a lot of clients don't want to do their own single family office. They want to plug into a multifamily office that already has all those operations up and running.
Got it. So they can essentially, form their own team and put them under one roof, as you say, or outsource that to a multifamily office that is serving different families, but with the same service team.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. I think, we work with a number of those families as well and individuals. And I think it's always good to refresh on what that means and also let people know about those opportunities as well. People often get worn out being the quarterback and they want somebody to be their quarterback. And that allows them to enjoy their life a little bit more than just having to now manage this other part of what they've created. They worked hard to create the wealth and now they want to enjoy it. So as part of that, you talk about tax strategies. So one of the biggies that I know came up was the real estate professional status. And let's just dive right into what is that and how does it work? And maybe you can just start with what is it?
Yeah. So real estate professional status is oftentimes underused in the United States by families. A lot of people in the United States own real estate in some way, shape, or form and don't know in many cases that they actually qualify for real estate professional status and aren't using that tax benefit to their advantage. So real estate professional status is when you are, is what it says, a real estate professional. So you spend a certain amount of time, and the IRS has rules on what qualifies you and what doesn't qualify you as a real estate professional. But most people are like, well, I'm not a realtor. I don't have real estate professional status. So that is one way to qualify, is having a real estate license. But there's other ways too, like owning short-term rental properties, like an Airbnb or storage units can qualify you. And the key is you can't outsource the management on those. The IRS wants us to be managing those properties ourselves. And that's how we put in those hours to qualify for that real estate professional status. And once you have that status, then there's lots of opportunities that you can use it for to your advantage.
So I know there are several high income earners, and I'll just make up an example that maybe somebody's a orthopedic surgeon and then their spouse primarily is at home with the family. And that may be an opportunity for them to get the real estate professional status, for example. And that seems to be a scenario that comes up more often than not. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a perfect scenario. We work with a lot of surgeon groups, and that is oftentimes the case. That one spouse, oftentimes a surgeon, if the other spouse is at home, either we can have them get a real estate license, have them manage some short-term rentals, and then when they purchase those and they Section 179 depreciate, then they can write off that income against the W-2 or 1099 surgeon's income, their active income, and not just their passive income. So it can be extremely advantageous from a tax saving standpoint if you have a case like that.
All right. So that person that's staying home can really contribute to the bottom line of what the family is able to keep from those earnings.
Yeah, business owners are great for it as well. Business owners with flexible schedules, because they have that time that they can be in the IRS's eyes working as a real estate professional. Whereas if you're a W-2 earner and you're a surgeon, the IRS isn't going to let you have real estate professional status on your own. But that's where a spouse can come into play. And same with business owners. They have that flexibility because they're not W-2 income earners.
And to claim the status, how do you go about claiming it?
File it on your taxes.
All right. So it's just a matter of checking a box or something like that when you file your tax return.
It is. It's that simple. Now, we always are very big on documentation, because if there is a case of an audit, you need to be able to go back and you need to have, nowadays with AI, it's easier to document, put it in an Excel spreadsheet of sorts, but, time logs of time spent in the real estate, emails, trips documented in the calendar that, hey, I went to go visit the property, or I talked to so-and-so about this deal, I vetted this deal this day, etc., just so you could go back in case there was ever an audit and prove to the IRS that you're spending the time in real estate.
And you mentioned that getting your real estate license might be one of the strongest pieces of evidence. Or what are your thoughts on that? And what's it really take to get a real estate license, if you know?
Well, my wife just passed her test because we are using the real estate professional status ourselves. And so really, you got to take the classes in whatever state you're in. You got to qualify by passing all the classes, and then you have to pass the exam. And then there's some continuing education and ethics and things like that you have to keep up on. The IRS would have a really hard time justifying somebody wasn't a real estate professional status if they hold a real estate license. Just the continuing education and the meetings that you have alone pretty quickly adds up on the hours and the time logs and just the emails and those things. What they really scrutinize is if there's two W-2 earners in a family claiming real estate professional status, they're going to really say, well, how can you be working over 50% of your time in real estate when you're a full-time W-2 employee?
Got it. So if somebody is that, not working outside the home perhaps, and then they go and get their real estate license, that's going to be really strong proof that you are a real estate professional and able to claim that status.
Absolutely. And like I said, we always still recommend documenting and creating a paper trail as much as possible. But like I said, if you look at the case law and, some of these cases that the IRS has brought up, that's always been a very strong case compared to some of the W-2 earners.
Got it. So I think that let's talk a little bit more about the 50%. So explain that rule again.
Yeah, so they say you have to spend more than 50% of your time in 750 hours in real estate. So, full-time job, might be working a couple thousand hours a year. Manage an Airbnb, if anybody has or know anybody that has, is a lot of work. You're sending a ton of emails, you're scheduling, you're changing the pricing on your calendar, you're talking to cleaning people, and this could just be for one property. It quickly adds up to 750 hours. So again, the key is 750 hours and 50% or more of your time, which is why they will scrutinize those who are less than 50% of their time because they're W-2.
Got it. So, it's real time commitment that we're talking about. It's not just a easy go check the box and this happens. You have to actually spend time on this activity.
You do, yes. And you have to document that time.
Okay. And then let's get into the benefits then of having that real estate professional status and why somebody might want to spend that time if their household has the high income that you're looking at. How can we, pay less income tax? How does that end up benefiting them?
Yeah. So an example, let's just say you have a high income earner. that earns $1.5 million a year for simple numbers. And they want to put $1 million into a real estate project. And this could be partially loaned. So maybe they put 20% down, they put $200,000 in the loans on $1 million. So it costs them $200,000. Now, let's say the spouse has real estate professional status, and as a joint income, they have $1.5 million of income. They do what's called a cost segregation study on that property, and those renovations and everything are Section 179 bonus depreciable. So let's just say that comes up with probably on average about $600,000 that's bonus depreciated. So that $600,000 now comes off of that active W-2 or 1099 income. So now that income is dropped from 1.5 million down to 900,000. So they just had a $600,000 decrease in income. It cost them $200,000 if they're in roughly a 50% tax bracket, which a lot of high income earners are with state and everything else. That saves them $300,000. So they're still net $100,000, and now they own $1 million real estate property.
And how does that work in year 2?
So it depends. Sometimes that will continue on as well. So a lot of times we'll do hotel projects where it's about a 60% write-off, 50%, 40% over the course of 3 years with those renovations, the cost segregation, the depreciation. So you put in, we'll call it $1 million again, you get that $600,000 write-off year 1, $500,000 year 2, $400,000 year 3. A lot of times, a lot of those projects get sold in year 5 or 6. And then they have the option to take the gains of that property as well. They can pay capital gains tax on those, or they can 1031 exchange them into another property to make it a tax-free exchange and continue the process. And then eventually at death, their children get a step up in basis and there's no taxes on that real estate portfolio.
So this is a pretty amazing way for people to build real estate through tax savings.
Absolutely. It's great to build that portfolio while getting the tax savings. So you're really hitting 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah. So instead of paying the IRS because you have the 179 deductions, you're able to use those funds to invest in the real estate.
Exactly.
Well, that's why it's so powerful. And it sounds like it's compounding. And can you do this every year? Can you just buy a new property every year? Or if it's not like a hotel project, are there limits on how often you can do this?
No limits. And a lot of times our clients will buy 1 or multiple properties in a year for various reasons. And you can do as many as you want in a year. You can skip a year. It just keeps going on.
That's pretty powerful, especially if, like you said, we have one spouse that has the high income and the other person is really able to help build the net worth using these tax savings strategies.
Yep, absolutely.
So what kind of properties would they be looking for? Let's talk a little bit more about that. And then I know we mentioned Section 179, and in the business, that's a pretty common term, but I want to explain what that is too.
Yeah, so the kind of properties are generally more in the commercial space. So multifamily apartment complexes, hotels, industrial projects. Again, sometimes storage units, Airbnbs along those lines. Residential families will happen. Some single unit family will happen every once in a while. The IRS will scrutinize that and can. So the way that the IRS sees it, if you own 1 rental property and you rent it out to a family for a 12-month lease, you're probably not spending 750 hours on 1 property. Now you have a dozen of those, absolutely. Maintenance, calls, and all that stuff, but they'll scrutinize single family homes, but short-term rentals are much more justifiable in that aspect.
Okay, so you want to buy property in Florida and VRBO it out. That might be a nice option.
Absolutely. So you can do it anywhere in the United States and qualify for it. So it doesn't just have to be in your home state. Our clients do it all over.
Okay, but then talk a little bit too. You have to actually manage it. Can you hire other people to help you manage it?
No, the IRS does not like when you hire outside help. And the reason why is because then they say, well, you're not spending your 750 hours. Somebody else is doing it for you. So you have to be the one managing it in order to qualify.
Okay, so if you live in the Midwest, you probably don't want to get that Florida property because you're going to need help managing it unless you're going to be in Florida a lot.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our clients do have out of state properties that they Airbnb themselves. Usually they just build relationships with, the locals to get plumbers, electricians, and maintenance people, cleaning people, all that stuff. So a lot of our clients actually really haven't had troubles managing their out of state properties from that aspect.
Okay, so it's if you're keeping them rented, and can you hire another realtor to help you rent them out?
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue at all. Like I said, as long as you can justify you're making your hours and having someone help you rent it and fill it, I don't think that's a problem.
All right. And okay, now let's jump into 179. So talk a little bit more about what that is and how that's powerful.
Yeah, so Section 179 just got codified into law that we can get 100% bonus depreciation indefinitely until they change it. So the way it was is we got 100% for a while, and then they started to decrease what we were allowed. So it went to 80% and 60%, and it was going to continue to drop on a schedule. But the new law that came out with this new bill, they codified 100% bonus depreciation, which is great for real estate professional status users because a couple of years ago, you could only do 60%. So if you got that $600,000 write-off, you could only do 60% of that. Whereas now you get the full 600,000 again. So it's a huge benefit to the economy in general, because what it gets is people buying and developing more real estate, which is why they did it. And both sides of the aisle passed it for that reason.
Was that part of the big, beautiful bill?
It was, yes.
One of the beautiful parts. Okay. So when you're talking about these expenses, so you buy a property, then you're going to need to put new money into it, essentially.
Yes. And so that's where the cost segregation study comes into play. So there's different firms that will do cost segregation studies. There's usually separate firms for residential and commercial. And what they'll come in is they'll assess the value of everything, and then they'll create a depreciation price for it. And that's how you get your 100% bonus depreciation. So even if you aren't doing renovations, you can still do a cost segregation study and get the 100% Section 179 bonus depreciation. But if you're doing renovations, that just adds on top of what you're already going to do.
Okay, so if you buy a brand new apartment complex, you could still get 179 depreciation if you do the study.
Yes, absolutely.
And for these studies, talk a little bit about like how expensive is it to get one of these studies? And I'm sure it's a pretty wide range depending on the property and the portfolio properties, but just give the listeners some sort of sense.
Yeah, it definitely can be a range for sure. I'd say average for a commercial property in the United States is probably around 20 grand. We've got some partnerships with some fantastic firms that'll do it between about $5,000 and $10,000.
Probably a repeat requester for these studies.
Yeah, for sure.
Buying on volume there. All right, that's great. And then to take the deductions, then it's on that year's tax return, and that's really what we're trying to get after.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of accountants, unfortunately, aren't terribly familiar with this strategy. So usually if our clients aren't working with our own accountants, which is rarely the case, then we'll kind of go in, we'll present to their accountants, explain it, how to use it, how to justify it. Like I said, we're big on education. We are, wanting people to be able to use the rules in the way that our laws are meant to be used.
You bet. And then you also mentioned the 1031. So eventually you want to sell the property. And then at that point in time, you can do the 1031, which has been around a lot more. And I think it's something people talk about a lot more. But let's just explain what that 1031 exchange process at a high level looks like. I think that could be a show all itself.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's just say you come to the end of the life in a hotel, all the partners in it say, we're ready to offload this property. Excuse me, we've gotten everything we want out of it, and now it's time to sell. So let's just say each person owns 25% that's partner in the property, and my portion's $1 million. and I put in 600,000 to start. So I have 400,000 a gain. I can pay taxes on that 400,000, or I can 1031. And there's rules on that of putting it into a new property. So let's just say I identify another hotel. You got 180 days to do so in the IRS tax code. So identify it, close on it, do a proper exchange with a qualified intermediary. Now that $1 million goes into the next property and it's not taxable to me. So we kind of call it kicking the can down the road. So you can just kind of 1031 your way to death, and then you get the step up in basis. It's also very valuable for farmers because many farmers, as we know, being in the Midwest, have very low basis on their land and very high property values. So in many cases, we'll have to 1031 and do different types of strategies for people like that to make sure that they don't pay that tax bill. And under current law, as long as they pass with that, their kids get a step up in basis, meaning if they have a $2 million gain, their kids, once they pass away, have a $0 gain in the eyes of the IRS.
Really powerful stuff there. And I think you mentioned having a qualified intermediary. I think that's really important. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means? Because you got to work with some other professional people to make this strategy come together.
Absolutely. And the IRS, just like everything, they scrutinize the 1031. So let's just say that hotel sells and a check was written to me or one of my LLCs or corporations. Now that exchange is fully taxable. So what we do is we'll work with what's called a qualified intermediary, oftentimes title company, bank, etc. So when that sale happens, the check is actually written to the qualified intermediary and it stays in that bucket away from me. And then it goes into the next property. If it ever touches me, even if a check is issued in my name and not cashed, it becomes taxable. So you have to be very careful, work with professionals ahead of time to make sure you're taking all the right steps, because people have come to us after the fact and said, oh, I want this to be a 1031. They didn't use a qualified intermediary. It's taxable.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because you got to plan a little bit in advance to make these things come together right.
Absolutely.
So as you're working through these different strategies, Travis, are there any other things that you wanted to highlight today that you like to layer in to help people with their income tax problem?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just weave it all in with the overall estate planning. As you know, we work very closely with firms like yours and your team to interweave our tax strategies into the estate planning, because many times estates are taxed very heavily, as we both know, and they don't need to be, as long as we take that proactive planning approach.
Absolutely. So on the estate tax side, I think, we're focusing primarily on income tax and what you can do there today, but we'll have to get back together and talk more about the estate tax, because I find very few people are looking ahead to that estate tax, and it's real. I always say it's easier for the government to tax dead people, but if you don't plan for it, it can take a real toll. People talk about the Rockefeller effect, where you want to essentially control everything, but don't own it in your own name personally. And it can be really powerful if you set up the right trust structures and entities and LLCs, both to protect your assets today, as well as preserve them for your legacy in the future from generation to generation.
No doubt.
Well, that's great. Well, I think we're coming up on close to the end of our time as far as what we were going to take questions for. And I'm wondering if there are maybe any people in the comments that have questions, and let's go take a peek and see. I'm not sure if I see any in there yet, but I would encourage people, if you have a question and you want us to answer it live, this is a great opportunity to do so. If you have a general question on anything that Travis and I have covered so far today. We're really excited to share our knowledge as it relates to these different tools and trying to get real estate professional status, or how you go about, doing the 179 bonus depreciation deductions, to trying to bring down that income and build wealth at the same time through real estate. I think that's super exciting. And I do know a lot of people are investing in real estate, but they're probably not getting the advantage of the tax deductions along the way. And then cost seg studies, those are kind of a buzzword that you hear about, but I still think very few people really know how to take advantage of them unless they're they're really focused on the real estate side of things. While we're looking to see if any comments or questions come in, let's talk about that just a little bit more in the cost seg. So that can help businesses too, right? As far as if they are doing projects inside their company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your own renovations qualify for that as well. And on the other side of the businesses is a lot of times we'll do those types of real estate professional status tax strategies when they do have an exit. Because a lot of times when our business owners have a large exit and liquidity event, they have a really big tax bill. So that's when we got to get kind of creative with the tax strategies during those especially large years. In many cases, we can make it almost a tax-free event.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing because we have a lot of baby boomers that are starting to retire and sell off their businesses. So if they're looking to plan to have an exit and have a sale, what are some of the ways that you're able to help bring that capital gain down for people?
Yeah, so we can structure it in a way to make it state tax free. So if you're in a state where there's state taxes, that's one of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. Is to make it state tax free. And then beyond that, for the federal side, a lot of times we'll use, especially now with 100% back on Section 179, we can get pretty creative with what we do with Section 179, be it physical real estate, different sorts of purchases. And it could be anything from software equipment to, physical construction equipment to all sorts of different things. And sometimes we'll do a combination of all of the above.
All right, there's a lot to unpack in that whole section there as well, you talked about, but just to know that there are ways to bring down that capital gain if you're going to liquidate your company and sell off in order to not have to give so much of your earnings away again in a capital gain structure. So you mentioned a couple of them really quickly, and I think that when you're looking at that, what would be the first thing that you mentioned was state tax free. So I know state of South Dakota, there's no state income tax and that there wouldn't be any state tax there. But if you're in Iowa or Nebraska, where I think a lot of our folks probably are, how do you get out of Iowa and Nebraska if you're going to sell your company?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, we work with lovely law firms that are intellectually inclined to know how to do that. And so we structure in a way, a legal structure with those exits. And we don't need to get too into the weeds of how that they go into kind of a separate, we'll call it account for a while. And then when that qualified period is over, it goes back to them. And that's how you avoid the state taxes. So very common in our exit planning strategies and great for obviously states that have a state tax.
Absolutely. And right there in Omaha, definitely have state tax. And so things to think about before you sell. Again, you probably can't get the LOI and call you up at that point in time, right, Travis? You need to plan a little further in advance.
Always. Give me 3 to 5 years. That's the dream. Some people call and say, hey, I want to sell next month, but a guy can dream, right?
Yeah, we got to scramble around a lot then. I know it's hard for us to put some of those trust and company structures together that quickly as well. We work fast. We work as a team. We've got a robust team, but we're not quite wave our magic wand and it's done tomorrow. So definitely if they can call before the LOI is hit the desk, it is most helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Well, I don't see any comments in the chat, but this is our first Law Talk Live on LinkedIn. So hopefully we'll get people that are a little bit more. Oh, wait, here we got one right across the screen here. What do farmers roll the proceeds into? Oh, so we talked a lot about farmers and what is it that when they're going to sell the farm, how do they then, do they go buy another farm? What do they have to do with that money?
Yeah, most commonly, our farmers don't want to go back into physical real estate. They're kind of done with that portion of their life. They don't want to go into commercial real estate or more farm ground, etc. So in many cases, if they sell, we'll do what's called a Delaware Statutory Trust or a DST. And so we can roll that 1031 into the DST. And then from the DST, we can continue it into almost like a fund-like structure where they don't have to manage it. A company helps manage it. They buy properties. These are multi-billion-dollar companies that specialize in 1031 DST exchanges, and farmers are a great fit for many of those in many cases.
Wonderful. So a DST, can you break down what does that acronym mean, Travis?
The old Delaware Statutory Trust. So a Delaware Statutory Trust is something that is set up obviously in Delaware that allows us to 1031 out of physical real estate into these larger fund type investments where they are doing very large real estate projects, in many cases tens of millions or even 100 million plus projects. And so those projects, you get the benefit of the growth of those real estate, you get some of the income off it. So it's great because you make your farm sale tax free, and then you get the growth of the real estate for the rest of your life. Upon your passing, then your children get that step up in basis. And from the time of your sale until death, you don't have to worry about property management or being a real estate owner of physical property anymore.
Lets the farmer actually retire.
Absolutely. And get income.
I'm sure a lot of farmers would like an exit path like that. So I'm really glad that, Will, thank you for that question and much appreciated. Oh, wait, we've got another one here. What are common misconceptions about achieving real estate professional status?
There's a rule in Airbnbs with material participation that it has to be 100 hours. So many times people will be Googling or whatever and say, well, I can spend 100 hours. I can be a W-2 worker and do that and justify it. But the further part of that is beyond that and all of the rules that the IRS requires and not just that one. So a lot of times people don't realize that there's multiple facets of those rules. And then the other one is having two married W-2 income earners thinking that they can qualify.
So you really want somebody that doesn't get a W-2 in order to have that real estate professional status, and that'd be the right person to go obtain maybe their real estate license and be really strong then on making that claim.
Yeah, if they're full-time, if they're part-time, definitely acceptable.
Got it. So you could work part-time somewhere and have some minor income from some different source, but then if you're full-time, sounds like it's a watch out zone.
Yeah.
Got it. We've got another one here. Where do you see investors getting into trouble with aggressive tax strategies? I'm thinking it's with the audit.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely going to increase your audits by doing some of these, your potential. We've never had one happen, but we always prepare for if there would be. They wouldn't get into trouble because of the way we document it. Everything's legal. It's fully abided by. And frankly, they should be pretty quick audits if they were to happen. And sometimes they're randomized too by the IRS, and they'll drop in on real estate professional status just to make sure. And you dot your I's and cross your T's and show your documents. And they're not going to mess around and spend a bunch of money going deep into the weeds on somebody that has all of that. Because like I said, it's fully legal to do all of these things. And they're really not aggressive either. I mean, it's just, I'd say a lot of people perceive them as aggressive because they're not well known, but these are strategies people have been doing forever. And they're quite common, especially in the higher net worth spaces.
Good to know. Nothing new and made up here. It's all stuff that's happening. It's just maybe not well known. Mm-hmm. Very good. What questions should people be asking their CPA or attorney that they often overlook? Well, I'll let you talk about the CPA, and I can take on the attorney part too.
Yeah, definitely. CPAs can be a little tricky because they are not tax strategists. And so a lot of times what you give them is what they put in. And a lot of CPA firms are dealing with a lot of tax returns, and they just frankly don't have the bandwidth or capacity to go really deep into tax strategy. I would maybe ask the CPAs if they work with tax strategists, people that do that separately, and understand some of these laws, and tax attorneys, or if they have relationships with tax attorneys to understand some of these and how they work and the nuances. Because what we found is a lot of CPA firms, frankly, aren't terribly knowledgeable on a lot of it. But you could, present the real estate professional status option and have them do research if they're not already familiar with it, and talk to them about how to document it, how to qualify for it, and make sure that you're doing everything the right way.
I know at the firm, we've hired two different attorneys that both have their LLM in tax, which is after law school, they went on to a master's program just to learn IRS tax code. And I tell people that when the CPAs don't know what to do, that's the type of lawyer they call. So It is important to have people that are deep in the weeds of the tax code and the regulations and the different IRS opinions in order to help guide you. But I think first and foremost is talking to professionals that have some knowledge and work with people like you in order to be able to be helpful. One of the things I will find with folks is maybe they call and they just do a transaction, or they're just working on buying one piece of real estate, boom, that's done. Or they form their LLC and they keep it up and they maintain it. But to actually come in and sit down and have a strategy meeting in order to talk about the bigger picture, the goals, get your team of professionals together. If they're not working with a family office in particular, and especially for that family office as well, to bring the attorney into the table in order to have everybody on the same page with a larger game plan in order to protect that family and provide different strategies and structures. Because sometimes you may have operated with your single LLC and now there's different trusts that need to be layered in and different things in order to preserve that wealth for the future and maybe prepare for that exit.
Yep, absolutely.
And it doesn't have to take a lot of time either. Really setting up one meeting is about what it takes to start. And I'll tell folks it's usually 2 or 3 meetings, and then you have a real strong game plan.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. Oh, we've got another one. How do opportunity zones factor into tax reduction strategies today? Oh, that's a great one. Opportunity zones are also a hot button. What have you seen with regard to opportunity zones, Travis?
Yeah, we love them. There's kind of in limbo right now with current law and regulation. So we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen when they finalize that. As of now, the current laws are still beneficial, but it looks like they're going to be changing them pretty soon. So we're not trying to lock anybody into too many long-term plans with the upcoming likely change in regulation around opportunity zones, but they're great and they definitely have a place, and we use them all the time.
Yeah, and the benefit of them was, again, they get different tax treatment at the end of the day.
Yeah, so it's kind of essentially in a way alternative to a Roth IRA, and you get some tax-free growth of some of your benefit isn't taxable the way it would be as if you were to sell real estate or put money into something else. So it's got the tax-free benefit of the growth of it, but you have to hold it for 10 years.
Very good. Well, that was another great question. Thank you so much for all the people that have provided questions into us today in this Law Talk Live. I really appreciated you, Travis, coming on today and sharing your knowledge and helping to spread the education to the listeners here on LinkedIn and be a part of Law Talk Live. I think you and I could talk for hours, and we just decided, hey, we should open this up and let other people listen to this conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for tuning in.
At Goosmann Law Firm, we believe the right conversations at the right time can change the trajectory of a business, a decision, or even a legacy. You can connect with us here on LinkedIn, follow along for future sessions, or visit GoosmannLaw.com for more information and additional resources. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.